Yeah, bad parents. You got problems. You don't know how to parent. You don't know how to parent your child. These are some of the messages I hear parents recount to me when I interview them in the podcast. It makes me realize that a lot of people around them, as well intentioned as they may be, really don't understand what's going on, including myself. I'll be honest. When I first learned about child violence and aggression, my first thought was, as a parent of four children, these inexperienced parents, they need to exert a bit more discipline. They got to be tough. At the same time, they got to be loving, right? You got to have that special mixture so you can make sure that you are the authority while the kids still know you love them. They should never be allowed to step over the boundaries you set for them. Makes sense, right? Well, for families living with child violence and aggression, I couldn't be more wrong. To me, in the beginning, I thought, obviously, these parents are missing something. The truth is, I was missing something. I didn't really understand what they were going through. And that was painfully clear. I mean, painfully, painfully clear. As I started listening to the parents, as I started hearing their stories of what their children did and how well the parents behaved, how loving the parents were in the face of such adversity, I was stunned. In spite of their child screaming, shouting, throwing things at them, threatening them with knives, beating on them, they remained loving. They remained at peace. Even in the face of unimaginable pain, violence, and aggression, they stayed calm in the face of their child. It made sense. Only a true parent would sacrifice so much pain for their child. One of the most important things of their lives, certainly one of the most important things in my life. But that's when I painfully realized that I was ignorant. I didn't really know this condition. It was not a result of a lack of discipline. This was not a matter of better parenting. This had nothing to do with that. This actually had to do with a child that was traumatized by these raging episodes that spawned from them. Through no fault of their own, they were acting out in traumatic ways. Again, I repeat, through no fault of their own. And the parents, the beautiful, amazing parents, doing everything they can, sacrificing their social lives, their family lives, sometimes even their relationships to be there for their baby. So they can keep their child safe from the system, from those who would take their child away from them. This is the reality I didn't understand. Now I get it. If you're like me and you picked up this book thinking to yourself, child violence and aggression, and you're like, what? Come on. How bad can it be? Just a child. Well, it's worse than that. It's ugly. If you ever get a chance to listen to the podcast, you'll hear how terrible it is from the mouths of the parents themselves. This is a totally different world. This is a secret world, a world that has been hidden from society's view, from our view, for a very long time. Yet I would dare say it's not a world that is unfamiliar nor alien to us. We watch the story of this world play out almost every day on the news. When we look back and we ask, well, why are all these school shootings happening? Right? Why are all these children getting involved in shootings everywhere? Why are young adults involved in these shootings? What is happening? That's when you begin to connect the pieces. Wait a second. Perhaps the issue started a long time ago. Perhaps the child was screaming out for help all along, and the parents were doing everything they could to help them. Yet they never got the tools, they never got the support, they never got the resources. And quite frankly, they never even received the recognition that there was even a problem to begin with. And they certainly didn't get an understanding of what they were going through. So perhaps this is what happens in these cases that remain unchecked, unresolved. When the child grows up to become an adolescent or adult, and in a fit of rage, turns their anger at their school and their workplace. That's when the family's lifelong suffering now becomes our nightmare. That's when the issue comes around full circle. This very realization and the helplessness I felt when interviewing these families are why I started writing this book. That's why I launched a podcast on this issue. These parents, these families, they need a voice. And their children need to be heard. They need support. They need tools. I understand that therapists, social workers, and much of the system doesn't quite understand how to help these parents, these beautiful parents and children that are acting out in violent and aggressive ways. I get it that they try. Many therapists work hard to give the parent tools. Yet many are lost. It's very difficult because you're not dealing with regular circumstances. There's one parent that offered a unique perspective in a podcast. They reflected, there's my child, and then there's the mental health child. There's my baby, and then there's this other being, this other mental health being that comes out in episodes of rage. And when that mental health child surfaces, nothing, absolutely nothing can stop it. Nothing can bring it down without harming the child. The only thing I can do, the parent told me, is to de-escalate the situation. That's the only way they can bring their child back. Intrigued, I asked, well, how does that work? How does that happen? Well, they claimed, we'd be having a peaceful day with our family, and then all of a sudden, small trigger, nothing big. In many cases, they don't even know the reason. The child flips. They start breaking things or threatening everyone around them. They start beating on objects. And if their siblings are around, they'll go after them. You can't stop them with words or by screaming. You have to physically hold them back, is what they told me. Now here's the kicker, they added. The more you hold them back, the worse they scream. The more you speak to them to calm down, the more violent they get. It takes a lot of effort to get them back to the room. And sometimes you need to endure a beating to do it. Imagine that as a parent. You have to endure a beating in order to safeguard your child. And hopefully you have a room that you can keep them in that won't harm themselves. Because if not, they'll destroy the room. And could possibly, even worse, injure themselves. Now they tell me, once the ranting and raving, the screaming, the breaking of things, the violence, and all that dissipates, it doesn't just decrease over time, it literally goes away. It's like it's gone. It's almost as if it never happened, they tell me. After my mental health child rants and raves and breaks things, they just calm down and the child comes back as if nothing ever happened. It's almost like they don't remember. They step back and start asking for some love. Mommy, can I have some soup now? Daddy, I'm ready for my cookies and milk now. It's surreal for the parents. One moment their child is a ball of uncontrollable rage, and the next, simply beautiful angels asking for help, for love actually. It's hard for the parents to recover, and I can't imagine how difficult that must be to adjust to a new reality like that. From the brink of madness to an eerie sort of calm in the flash of an eye. That's how they described it to me. I believe that this phenomena is what forms the perception that parents have that there's this beautiful child on one hand, their beautiful child, and then there's the mental health child on the other. And it's not the child's fault. There's nothing the child can do. There's no amount of discipline that can help the child, as there's no control when they're in those episodes of rage. In truth, the regular child is perfectly fine. The regular child is in fact so fine that if the parent confided in you or I that what the child did, the violent rage that they just inflicted, you would think there'd be something wrong with the parent and not the child. For to us, if we were ever to meet the child, we'd say, wow, this is such a sweet and respectful young boy or girl. You would never believe that they would be inflicting this kind of violence and aggression. And no one can blame you, because in reality, it's not them. It's not the regular child that's doing all of this. It's the mental health child. It's the one they don't have control over. So you and I would never know that mental health child exists. There's really no way of knowing unless we experience the violent episodes ourselves. And so many times parents have told me, professionals, therapists, social workers, everyone to some level, no matter how much they want to believe them, don't believe them until they see a smidgen, not even the full blast of the rage, just a small inkling of the rage. And then they're like, wow, oh my God, this is really possible. This is really possible. So that's why disciplining a child when they're experiencing this episode is nonsensical. All logic goes out the window, and any kind of tactic that I've ever imagined, that I've ever used, that I've ever dealt with my children would be useless. In fact, if I were to face a child with violence and aggression issues, I quite frankly wouldn't know what to do. I'd have zero skills in dealing with it. I can tell because when I listen to the stories, when I listen to the way that parents react, when I listen to the tools the parents use, the way they calm their children down, I would have never have guessed that works. I'll give you an example. In one interview, a parent outlined the only way that they can get their child to calm down at this point in time. The one tool she found to effectively de-escalate her child's rages is when she texts a neighbor to come over and ask for milk. So the neighbor would come over, knock knock, and he'd be like, oh, do you mind if I can borrow some milk from you? Or a pot, or a pan, or something like that. They change it up all the time. Like magic, the child's violent episodes are gone. It's as if they were never there. Her child transforms into something from a horror show to a normal, beautiful young boy. As soon as the knock on the door happens, the child is terrified of exposing themselves, their mental health selves, to other people. That's all they have to do. De-escalate the child's rage and the danger passes. Then life is good. Move on. Now, while this works today, it doesn't help in the long run. The long-term issue isn't resolved, as the coping mechanism doesn't help the parents and the child build tools to know what is really going on and how they can avoid it and what to do when it happens next. Because it will happen next. And maybe next time, the neighbor doesn't need any more milk. So bad parents, negligent parents, incompetent parents, parents who lack discipline, parents who lack attention. Throw those thoughts out the window. That's not the case here. These are incredible parents, the kind of parents I would like to be if ever I were faced with a child experiencing these issues. My kids are now grown up, yet these parents make me think about what I could have done better as a father, how I could have better handled these intense experiences with my children with more calm and positivity. That's how good they are. So I hope this chapter helped open a door to the idea that this is not a regular normal situations, And these are amazing parents coping with extraordinary child issues. I know it helped open my eyes. However, it's only your help with your eyes, your ears that matter. Perhaps just by recognizing that this is different than what most of us understand, we can help shine a light on this hidden issue. Helping these families will in turn help us and our society as we provide the support they so desperately need to avoid the child growing up with these raging episodes and harming others. Thank you for reading, listening, and above all, for being here.